And tonight, the vault is open.
I found it in a storage unit in Riyadh. Not in a museum, not behind glass. Sitting on a shelf between a broken oscilloscope and 3 boxes of someone's old tax returns. A wooden radio, the kind they stopped making in the 1960s. Walnut casing, fabric speaker grill, a single tuning dial with numbers so worn you could barely read them. I almost walked past it, but there was something wrong with it. Not the way it looked, the way it felt. When I picked it up, there was this coldness in the wood. Not the cold of something that's been sitting in an unheated room. Something else. Something that moved. I bought it for $40. 3 weeks later, I pulled the back panel off. It was completely empty inside. No tubes, no wiring, no capacitors, no transformer, nothing. Just a hollow wooden box. And a wristwatch sitting in the center of the floor, face up, hands frozen at 11:47. I almost threw it away. Instead, I started making calls. And what I found pulled me back to a desert in eastern Saudi Arabia, January 1994. And a man named Malik who went to fix an antenna never came back. What happened to Malik is not a ghost story. I don't believe in ghosts, but I cannot explain the radio. And I cannot explain what the people who found his equipment heard when they turned it on. This is what I know. Malik was an engineer. Not the romantic kind. Not the guy who builds bridges or designs aircraft. He was a maintenance engineer for what the government called analog relay stations. Towers, built in the 1970s across remote desert regions to amplify long-range radio signals before satellite infrastructure existed. By 1994, most of those towers were obsolete. They still ran. Nobody turned them off. They just ran, transmitting and receiving signals that nobody was sending and nobody was listening to. Maintained on a rotating schedule by a small team of technicians who drove out every few weeks, checked the equipment, filled out forms, drove back. Malik had been doing it for 11 years. His supervisor, a man named Hassan, described him to me as methodical, not a compliment in his tone. He meant Malik was slow, careful to the point of obsession. The kind of man who triple-minus checked measurements that didn't need triple-minus checking. What Hassan didn't know, or maybe didn't care about, was why Malik was that careful. Malik had tinnitus. It started in his early 30s. A constant high-minus pitch ringing in his left ear that never stopped. Not when he slept. Not when he was underwater. Not when he was in complete silence, because for Malik, complete silence didn't exist anymore. Doctors told him it was nerve damage. Irreversible. Learn to live with it. Malik did not learn to live with it. Instead, he became obsessed with something he called the quiet frequency. He believed, with the certainty of an engineer and the desperation of a man who hadn't slept properly in 6 years, that somewhere in the radio spectrum there existed a frequency so specific, so mathematically precise, that it would cancel out the ringing, not mask it, cancel it, like noise canceling headphones, but for the inside of your skull. He spent his off hours running calculations, filling notebooks with frequency tables, testing tones at home through headphones until his wife made him do it in the garage. His colleagues thought it was harmless, a hobby, something to keep his mind busy. His wife thought it was getting worse. In December 1993, Malik filed a request with his supervisor to conduct a solo maintenance run on Relay Station 7- North, the most remote station in the network. Located in the Rub al Khali, the empty quarter, one of the largest continuous and deserts on Earth. The station had been flagged for a minor signal irregularity. A routine job. One technician 2 days back by Friday. Hassan approved it without reading the full report. The irregularity Malik had flagged was not routine. The station was picking up a signal on a frequency that mathematically should not exist. Not rare. Not unusual. Mathematically, should not exist. I found Malik's original report in the National Frequency Archive in Riyadh. A photocopy, badly degraded, but the numbers were there. The frequency he had identified was a negative value. Not zero. Not near -0. A true negative hertz reading, which is the electromagnetic equivalent of a temperature below absolute zero. It cannot happen. And yet the instruments recorded it. Malik wrote in the margin in pencil, 3 words. I hear it. He drove out on January 3rd, 1000, 994th, a Tuesday. The weather was clear. Cold for the desert for degrees Celsius at night. He filed his departure log at 6:14 a.m. in the morning and was expected back by January 5th. He did not come back on January 5th. He did not come back at all. When the search team arrived at Relay Station 7- North 3 days later, they found his truck parked outside. His equipment was inside the station, laid out in perfect order on the work table. His logbook was open to the last page. The final entry read, "It is not a frequency. It is a location, and it already knows I'm here." The wooden radio was sitting on the table next to the logbook. It was not standard -issue equipment. Nobody could explain where it came from. And when one of the search team members, a young technician named Yusuf, reached out to pick it up, he stopped. He told me he stopped because he could hear something coming from it. It wasn't plugged in. There was no power in the station. The generator had been switched off. He could hear a voice, calm, professional, like a news broadcast, talking about the weather in that room, in past tense, describing exactly what was happening as if it had already happened a long time ago. Yusuf is 70-1 years old now. He lives in Jeddah. He agreed to speak with me on the condition that I not use his last name. He remembers everything about that room. The cold, he told me. Not the desert cold. Something else. Like the air inside a refrigerator that has been running for years with nothing in it. The station itself was a concrete box. One room, maybe 5 meters by 8. A single window covered with metal mesh. Fluorescent lights that ran off the generator, which was off. The only light was coming through the mesh window and from a battery-powered lantern the search team had brought. Yusuf said the lantern flickered when he got close to the radio. Not constantly, rhythmically, like a pulse. He described the wooden radio to me before I had told him anything about the one I found. Walnut casing, fabric grill, single tuning dial. I showed him a photo. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "Where did you get that?" The broadcast Yusuf heard was in Arabic. Standard modern Arabic, the kind used in formal news programming. The voice was male. Calm. Unhurried. He could only make out fragments before the other members of the team came in and the sound faded. But what he heard was this. A description of the weather in the station at that exact moment. For degrees, wind from the northeast at 12 kilometers per hour. A pressure front moving in from the south. Accurate. Completely accurate. And then a sentence that made no meteorological sense. Visibility is 0. The observer has not yet understood that the observation has ended. That was it. The signal dropped. Static. Nothing. One of the other team members asked Yusuf what he was doing standing there with his hand in the air. He didn't know how to explain that he had been reaching for a radio that wasn't connected to anything on hearing a live broadcast about a room that already knew he was in it. They searched the station for 3 hours. They found Malik's personal effects thermos, a folded prayer rug, 3 mechanical pencils lined up in a row, his meeting and skidden opened. The equipment had been checked, but nothing had been repaired. Every diagnostic report was filled out completely incorrectly. The signal irregularity that had brought him there was noted as confirmed. Source undetermined. No corrective action available. No corrective action available. I want you to understand what that means from a technical standpoint. That phrase appears nowhere in standard maintenance protocol language. There is no checkbox for it. No form field. Malik wrote it in by hand. They found his footprints in the dust on the floor. They led from the door to the work table. They did not lead anywhere else. He had walked to the table and stopped. I spent for months trying to find a rational explanation for the frequency reading in Malik's report. I contacted 3 electrical engineers, a physicist at King Abdulaziz University, and a retired signals officer who had worked with the relay network in the 1980s. Every single one of them told me the same thing. A negative frequency is not a signal. It is a mathematical artifact. It appears in calculations as an echo of a real frequency on the other side of 0. The way a mirror image exists. It is not real. It cannot be transmitted. It cannot be received. And then the physicist said something that I have not been able to stop thinking about. She said, unless the receiver is not receiving the signal. Unless the signal is receiving the receiver. She was being theoretical. She was describing a mathematical impossibility. But she said it. And I wrote it down. Because of what comes next. The wooden radio was taken back to Riyadh as part of the equipment inventory. Logged as personal item, origin unknown. Stored in a warehouse with the rest of the station's contents pending the investigation into Malik's disappearance. The investigation lasted 8 months. The conclusion was accidental death by exposure. No body was ever found. No further explanation was offered. The warehouse burned down in 1998. Cause electrical fault. All the contents were destroyed. Except, apparently, one walnut-cased wooden radio with a fabric grill and a tuning dial, which ended up in a storage unit in Riyadh, which I bought for $40, and which, when I opened it, was empty, except for a wristwatch, with the hands frozen at 11:47. I looked at Malik's departure log again after I got home. The time he filed it, 6:14 a.m. in the morning. I looked at his maintenance logbook, the final entry, no time recorded, but there was one more thing in the file I had missed the first time through. A personal note, not an official document, handwritten on the back of a blank form. Probably something Malik wrote for himself, not for the record. It was a frequency, a specific number, written out to 6 decimal places. I ran it through the conversion tables. It was not a negative frequency. It was not mathematically impossible. It was 11.47 kilohertz. 11.47. The time on the watch. And the last thing I will tell you about that note, before we get to what the frequency actually does when you run it, is that the handwriting in that note does not match Malik's handwriting anywhere else in the file, but it matches the handwriting on the inside back panel of the wooden radio. The panel that should have been covering wires on vacuum tubes. The panel that was covering nothing. Someone wrote a frequency inside an empty box, and I think Malik found it. 11.47 kilohertz. Before I tell you what that frequency does, I need to tell you what it is, because it is not made up. It is not something I invented for this story. It is a real, documented, cataloged frequency that has been sitting in the International Telecommunication Union's frequency allocation table since 1959. It is listed under a category called unallocated. That means no government, no broadcaster, no military, no research institution has ever filed a claim to use it. In a spectrum where every single kilohertz has been divided, assigned, regulated, and fought over since the 1930s, this one has been sitting empty for 60-5 years. Not because nobody wanted it, because every attempt to use it produced the same anomaly. I found this through a retired IT technical consultant named Dive, Elena Vasquez, based in Geneva. She spent 20-2 years cataloging frequency interference reports before retiring in 2011. She agreed to speak with me by phone. She told me that 11.47 kHz appears in interference reports going back to 1961, always as the source of an unidentified signal bleeding into adjacent frequencies, never as a receiver, always as an emitter. The strange part, she told me, is the directionality. Radio signals propagate outward. They expand. 11.47 consistently shows inward propagation, like a drain. I asked her what that meant physically. She said it means whatever is on that frequency is not broadcasting. It is pulling. The reports span 6 decades and 4 continents. A ham radio operator in New Zealand in 1971 who reported hearing his own voice on 11.47 before he had started speaking. A signals technician at a NATO installation in Germany in 1983 who filed a report about a broadcast describing classified information that had not yet been transmitted. A researcher at an atmospheric monitoring station in Alaska in 2001 who shut down his entire system after 11.47 began registering activity during a geomagnetic storm and his equipment started logging timestamps from 3 days in the future. Each report was filed. Each was reviewed. Each was classified as instrumentation error and closed. Dr. Vasquez told me she had personally reviewed 40-1 such reports in her career. She had never seen a single one result in a technical explanation that satisfied her. I used to think it was a calibration problem, she said. The same calibration problem, in 40-1 different countries, in 40-1 different decades, on 40-1 different types of equipment. She paused. At some point that stops being a calibration problem. I asked her if she had ever heard of Malik's case. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said the relay station. 1994. I asked her how she knew. She said because it was the only case where the frequency didn't just record something. It kept it. I did not know what she meant. She explained it to me slowly, the way someone explains something they have been waiting a long time to say out loud. In every other documented case of 11.47 interference, the anomaly was temporary. A few minutes, maybe an hour. Then it stopped. The equipment went back to normal. The strange signal disappeared. In Malik's case, the signal never stopped. She knew this because after the relay station was decommissioned on Malik's disappearance was officially closed. A routine satellite sweep of the area in 1997 picked up a signal emanating from the coordinates of Station 7-North. The station had no power. Had had no power since 1994. The signal was on 11.47 kHz. It was broadcasted continuously. They sent a team to check the equipment. They found nothing running. No power source, no transmitter, nothing that could account for a signal. The signal was still there when they left. It is as far as Drive. Vasquez knows. Still there now. I asked her what the signal contains. She said the same thing it always contains. I asked her what that was. She said weather reports, local conditions, current visibility. I asked her about the observer line. Visibility is 0. The observer has not yet understood that the observation has ended. Another pause. That line, she said, appears in every broadcast. Not sometimes. Every single one. Regardless of location. Regardless of year. I asked her what she thought it meant. She said, I think it's a warning. I think it plays on a loop because whoever is inside it cannot stop it. And I think Malik is the one broadcasting it. She hung up before I could respond. I sat with that for a long time. And then I thought about the watch. Here is what I should have noticed the first time. The watch I found inside the radio was not just frozen at 11:47. It was running. I had assumed it was stopped. The hands weren't moving when I looked at it. But when I set it down on my desk and came back an hour later, the minute hand had moved. 1 minute, in 60 real minutes. The watch had moved 1 minute. I timed it over 20 minus for hours. The watch was running at 1/60th of normal speed. And here is the thing about that. If you run time at 1/60th its normal rate, 1 minute of watch time equals 1 hour of real time. 1 hour of watch time equals 60 hours. 1 day of watch time equals 60 days. From January 3rd, 1994, the day Malik drove to Station 7-North. Today is just over 11,000 days. At 1/60th speed, the watch would show approximately 180 minus 3 days elapsed. I looked at the watch face again. The date window. I had not noticed the date window before. It was small, almost hidden in the shadow of the case. It read day 184th. I am not going to tell you I slept well that night. I went back to Malik's file. All of it. Every page. Looking for something I had missed. I found it on page 7 of his personnel record. The standard medical form. The kind every government employee fills out. Under pre-minus existing conditions, Malik had listed one thing. Tinnitus. Left ear. Onset 1988th. Frequency of perceived tone approximately 11.5 kHz. Approximately 11.5. He had been hearing it for 6 years before he drove into the empty quarter. He had been hearing 11.47 his entire career. Not tinnitus. A signal. And now I need to tell you the thing that I find hardest to say out loud. Because I am not a person who uses words like impossible without evidence. I find them lazy, imprecise. But I do not have another word for this. I told you the radio was empty when I opened it. That was true. But I went back to it the night after I calculated the watch. And I looked more carefully, with a flashlight, at the inside of the back panel. The one I had taken off. And in the corner in very small handwriting, there was something written that I had not seen before. Not a frequency this time. A name. My name. William. Underneath it, one line. You were not supposed to find this yet. I want to be honest with you. When I found that, my first thought was that someone had put it there. That this was an elaborate construction. That someone had sold me a prop and set up an incredibly complicated chain of documents and contacts to make me believe a story. So I had the ink analyzed. The lab dated it to between 1990 and 1996. I was 12 years old in 1994. I had never been to Saudi Arabia. I had never heard of Malik. And whoever wrote inside that box knew my name 30 years before I found it. Now I want to tell you about the night I turned the radio on. I don't know why I did it. I had told myself I wasn't going to. It had no components, no power source, no way to function. It was a box. The watch was running at 1/60th of normal speed. And here is the thing about that. If you run time at 1/60th its normal rate, 1 minute of watch time equals 1 hour of real time. 1 hour of watch time equals 60 hours. 1 day of watch time equals 60 days. From January 3rd, 1994, the day Malik drove to Station 7- North, to today, is just over 11,000 days. At 1/60th speed, the watch would show approximately 180-3 days elapsed. I looked at the watch face again. The date window. I had not noticed a date window before. It was small, almost hidden in the shadow of the case. It read day 184th. I am not going to tell you I slept well that night. I went back to Malik's file, all of it, every page, looking for something I had missed. I found it on page 7 of his personnel record, a standard medical form, the kind every government employee fills out, under pre-existing conditions. Malik had listed one thing: tinnitus, left ear, onset 1988, frequency of perceived tone approximately 11.5 kHz, approximately 11.5. He had been hearing it for 6 years before he drove into the empty quarter. He had been hearing 11.47 his entire career. Not tinnitus, a signal. And now I need to tell you the thing that I find hardest to say out loud. Because I am not a person who uses words like impossible without evidence. I find them lazy, imprecise. But I do not have another word for this. I told you the radio was empty when I opened it. That was true. But I went back to it the night after I calculated the watch. And I looked more carefully, with a flashlight, at the inside of the back panel, the one I had taken off. And in the corner, in very small handwriting, there was something written that I had not seen before. Not a frequency this time. A name. My name. William. Underneath it, one line. You were not supposed to find this yet. I want to be honest with you. When I found that, my first thought was that someone had put it there. That this was an elaborate construction. That someone had sold me a prop and set up an incredibly complicated chain of documents and contacts to make me believe a story. So I had the ink analyzed. The lab dated it to between 1990 and 1996. I was 12 years old in 1994. I had never been to Saudi Arabia. I had never heard of Malik. And whoever wrote inside that box knew my name 30 years before I found it. Now I want to tell you about the night I turned the radio on. I don't know why I did it. I had told myself I wasn't going to. It had no components, no power source, no way to function. It was a box.
Tonight's file is closed, but the secrets below never sleep. Subscribe to hold the key to your return. And now, the vault is closed.